All right, everyone, get out your bingo cards. You know what time it is. Case number 1. I didn't get pulled over.
All right, on the Samsung, sir, your name, please. Sir, what's your name?
Chad Walba.
All right. This is a citation that was issued on October 1st of this year, 142nd Avenue there, Door Township, Loudoun County, state of Michigan. Says a violation of seatbelt law, sir. You are here, Mr. Walma, on this citation to do one of three things. First is you could admit responsibility to the citation, or 2, admit responsibility, but you'd like to provide some sort of explanation as to how or why this happened. Or 3, you wish to contest this citation. In other words, fight the ticket at what we call informal hearing. What were you looking to do?
Fight the ticket because I never got pulled over, sir.
All right. So what I'd ask both of you to do, I'm going to swear you in. Please raise your right hands. Swear or affirm any testimony you give here today would be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
All right. And Mr. Walma, it makes a lot more sense for me to start with the deputy. He has the burden to establish to me why you were issued a citation in the first place. But after that, you'll have an opportunity to either ask questions or testify on your own behalf. And with that, deputy, if you want to pick up the narrative somewhere where it makes sense, explain the issuing of this citation.
Yep, on 10/1 of 2023, around 12 o'clock hours, I observed a 2007 Chevy truck pass me in Door. I observed the truck did not have a working taillight, and I observed the driver to also not be wearing a seatbelt and texting on his phone. Then, by the time I caught up to him, Chad had pulled into South Door Park and parked his vehicle. By the time I could get up to him, he had hopping out of the vehicle, but I then activated my lights and made contact with the driver. As we see in this courtroom today, is Chad Walma. I made contact with Chad, advised him that I pulled him over for his seatbelt, and while being on his phone, he admitted to being on his phone and not wearing his seatbelt.
Okay. And sir, what is it you'd like to tell me?
I was just saying I was already at the dog park. I didn't have no idea he was pulling me over, so I was already at the dog park. I just don't understand how I could get a ticket after I was already at the dog park and the cop pulled in. But the thing, first of all, he's lying about my taillight because I have never fixed it yet and it still works. That's not acceptable. I mean, you got I just don't see that how that's acceptable, lying. And then
sure. Would you like the $200 ticket for being on your phone instead of the $65 ticket for not having your seatbelt?
No, sir.
I'll let you switch it up if you're more comfortable with that one.
No, sir.
All right. As long as the officer observes the offenses, he can write you the ticket the next day if he wants.
Oh, well, if that's the case, I'll pay it then because I admit 100% I did not have my seatbelt on when I left and went around the corner. I did not have it on. I admit that. So okay. I guess this is a waste of time. I should just pay the ticket because I'm guilty of not having it on.
Well, and the thing is I don't mind you coming in here because essentially what you're wondering is how can I get a ticket if I wasn't pulled over? But that's not really how it works. You could actually even get a ticket because here's the thing. If you're accused, and I'm just 30 more seconds just because it sounds like you're maybe curious. Say there was a crime, that is when you have to prove something, beyond a reasonable doubt, and you can't use hearsay and the rules of evidence count. This is not a crime. It's what's called a civil infraction. In other words, the only punishment you get is a fine and not jail. The officer could even have it that some person told him, hey, I just watched Chad Walma drive down the street without a seatbelt, and he could write you a ticket for that.
Okay, now that's what I was wondering, sir.
Because that's a lower standard. But especially if the officer saw the violation themselves, they can write a ticket, and they don't have to write it in proximity to you doing it. In other words, have to, let's call it like catch you red-handed. As long as they observed it, because plenty of times what happens is, say it's a speed trap. Well, they have to start up the car, pull out, catch up to you. What if you just live down the street and you pull in your driveway? Does that mean they can't write you the speeding ticket because you're already in your driveway? No, it's just about whether or not they're able to testify that they saw the offense, and it has to be enough to convince me that it probably happened. So that's
Okay.
where you might be a little confused about
That's
the
why I wanted to take this in. I'm sorry, but if that's the case, I will pay it, sir. I just thought it was, well, how the hell could that be legal?
Yeah.
That's it.
So in other words, the only thing to do here now is to make contact with the court to pay that $65. And then you're all set for what we needed to do here today.
And can I ask you a question, sir? See, it rained all last week, so I don't got a crappy paycheck this week. Can I have 2 weeks to pay it?
Oh yeah, when you call in, they'll work out with you on what sort of timetable you can do that. They're used to that.
So, hey, sorry for wasting your time. I just was thinking I'm not going to pay a ticket if I didn't get pulled over. But if that's the law, that's the law. It's not a waste
of time. I'd rather have you leaving here understanding why what happened than you thinking you just got railroaded by the system. So
okay, thank you, sir. I'll pay it. I'll make sure it gets paid in full.
All right, thank you.
Number 2, when is an accident on purpose?
This is a citation that was issued on October 1st of this year on 2nd Street there in Layton Township, County, State of Michigan. This is a civil infraction for careless driving. And with that, Deputy, if you wish to pick up the narrative somewhere it would make sense, explain the issuing of this citation.
Yes, sir. So honestly, I would like to ask ahead of time if we could maybe drop this down to a VBSL, if you would be willing to do so. I responded to this crash in Layton Township. It was a motorcycle that was traveling southbound, going from concrete to gravel, lost control, wiped out. Mr. Wetzel here was being attended to by EMS. There was a female passenger on the back side of the bike who was also being attended to. There were multiple deputies on scene who were getting statements from different people. So some deputies had spoke to the female passenger who stated that Mr. Wetzel was traveling a very high rate of speed, attempting to show off to the female and lost control. However, which is why I issued him with careless driving. However, later that night, I went up to the hospital to issue Mr. Wetzel his citation, and I was able to speak to the female passenger myself. And I asked her what happened, and she was like, she said, "Yep, we were just driving along, not acting unresponsible or anything, and just went from asphalt to gravel, lost control, and wiped out." However, at that time, I had already printed off his citation for careless driving. So I don't know if you would be okay with dropping this down to a VBSL.
Well, that sounds appropriate, but let me explain to Mr. Wetzel what's going on. So, Mr. Wetzel, the ticket that you're currently looking at right now is careless driving. Careless driving is a fairly ugly ticket because it means that you were doing something either negligent or careless that involved the way you were driving that day. What I mean by a fairly ugly ticket is it costs more than most tickets. It costs $225. You also get more points for it with Secretary of State than you would regular tickets. What the officer's saying is that was based off of essentially things he was told by third party, and then by the time he was able to investigate it further, it felt more like what we would call too fast for conditions. So let me explain the ticket he's asking you to amend this to. Too fast for conditions is not accusing you of speeding. You can get too fast for conditions going 5 miles an hour. Essentially what it means is you have a duty to maintain your vehicle on the roadway. So anytime you have an accident where you slide off the road, in other words, most times this ticket would happen in the winter. Your car hits a patch of ice, slides off into the ditch. You get this, it's called too fast for conditions. It's not a speeding ticket. It means that your vehicle left the roadway or you had an accident. He's asking to amend that ticket to that. I have no objection. Do you have any objection to be not, and I'm not saying you have to accept it, I'm just saying that to be looking at that different ticket rather than careless? That's the first question for you.
No, I don't have any objection to that.
So we would now change the ticket to that too fast for conditions, which is only $110 fine. So it's about half price. You also get less points for it with Secretary of State. So I would ask you all over again, now that you're facing that ticket, do you wish to admit responsibility, or do you wish to have a hearing where you would contest that ticket?
I wish to contest that.
All right. So we're already sworn in, and so Deputy, essentially, I don't know if you have anything further to add, or I would just consider your explanation to this point to be your testimony. Would you wish to say anything else?
I would just like to add that this wouldn't be a vehicle. Obviously, this was a red crotch rocket that.
Yeah, a vehicle is just the description for anything that's essentially got a motor bigger than 50 cc. So.
Yeah, this was a pretty gnarly crash. We couldn't find his helmet in the first place. It brought out quite a scene from Layton Township, and Mr. Wetzel was in pretty rough shape that night. So,
all right, Mr. Wetzel, what is it you'd like to tell me?
So I would like to seek an impeding traffic violation instead for the accident.
Okay, but that would be up to executive, to the officer what ticket you're facing. I would not decide what ticket you're facing. That's why he asked me if I had any objections to amending it. So right now you're at hearing for too fast for conditions. So this would be your chance to testify why I should not find you responsible for the violation of basic speed law, too fast for conditions.
Okay. So I guess essentially, in terms of the too fast for conditions, we were not traveling at a high rate of speed, probably around 45, 50 miles per hour. And essentially when the accident actually happened, I was approaching a vehicle heading northbound on the dirt road, and they had their brights on. They turned them off, and the lights were still bright enough so that I could not see over the little bump where 141st connects with 2nd Street. And because there was that little hump, and then immediately after it was gravel, it was I was unable to react fast enough before the gravel, tried to ride it out and lost control. So
okay,
because of the actual terrain of the road and how the road's laid out, and the vehicle approaching me, I would argue that it was not, in fact, too high rate of speed, and in fact, just a accident.
I will explain to you this though. Road conditions and weather conditions are not a legal defense to this ticket. Essentially, the only defense to this ticket is I didn't have an accident. So in other words, like I said, it's not accusing you of speeding. You could get this going 10 miles an hour. But essentially, if you wipe out, you have a one-car accident on a motorcycle like that, you're going to get this ticket.
It really bothers me that he got a ticket for a single vehicle accident that was legit an accident. There was no negligence shown on his part. An accident is without apparent or deliberate cause, so he receives a citation. A citation is a civil infraction. A civil infraction is an act or omission that is prohibited by law and is not a crime. Well, he didn't act to do anything to cause the accident, so was there an omission? Did he fail to act? The only thing he failed to do was maintain control of his bike, but there was external factors making that impossible for him. So is that what we're using to give him a ticket when he was severely injured in an accident? That's kind of messed up.
And really, there's not a lot of defense to this ticket. What you're doing is providing an explanation of why it happened. You're not necessarily contesting that it did happen.
Okay.
All right. So I would find you responsible on this citation as it's been amended to the VSPL, the too fast for conditions. So what that means is what you owe to the court is $110 worth of fines and costs. But because you had a contested hearing, you also do have a right to say, I don't agree with what just happened there. I wish to contest this further at what's called formal hearing. Formal hearing would be on the ticket as amended. I don't think at any point in time you're going to be facing that careless ticket you were originally facing. But a formal hearing is in front of the district court judges with the prosecutor's office. But in order for you to contest this further to formal hearing, you must do two things. One is you must make that decision within 7 days of today's date. Your window of opportunity closes. And two, you must come in and ask for that formally because you need to post a bond in order to have formal hearing.
Okay.
So do you understand your rights on appeal?
I do.
Otherwise, you would accept this finding of responsibility on the amended ticket and make arrangements to pay that $110. But other than that, you're all set with what we needed to do here today. I'm going to go ahead and release you.
Okay. I appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you.